Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And boy, oh boy, we have an episode here for you guys today. You definitely want to stick around for it, so make sure you go and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, as y'all know, us in the media that cover sports, we usually tend to be fans of the very sports that we cover, right? For example, although I cover the NBA and I talk about the NBA for a living basically every day, I'm also a fan of the sport and some of the players like Kawhi Leonard, like Kobe Bryant, like Michael Jordan, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So even though I cover the sport, I'm also a fan, and it's quite normal, right? And I think when you're a fan of something, it allows you to go more depth into it, because after a while, it doesn't really seem like work, because you're really doing something that you that you enjoy. But at the same time, in that same vein, sometimes we can go too far, especially when we have a favorite player that we like and we want to come to the defense of that particular person, right? And that's exactly what I believe has been happening with Shannon Sharpe, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant, right? There's this kind of like trifecta taking place. For whatever reason, I personally believe that Shannon Sharpe doesn't like KD for a few reasons that we're going to get to a little bit later in this particular show. So you definitely want to stick around for that one. But today, before we even get to that, what we want to do is we want to play an audio, right, of Shannon Sharpe on Undisputed, I believe today, reacting to some comments that Goran Dragic, who was the former Brooklyn Net, I think he was picked up at the trade deadline last season, that he had to make about the Nets players and the culture that existed within the Brooklyn Nets organization. But before we go any further, this video is brought to you by sponsor Aura, who's also the official sponsor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is today? It's identity theft. Imagine trying to log into your email only to see that your password has been changed. Then you start getting weird notifications from your bank and credit cards, only to find out that all of your personal and sensitive information has been totally compromised. If you think it can happen to you and your family, just know that in 2020, over 49 million Americans were victims to identity theft, costing them a combined $56 billion. That is why we are excited to partner with Aura, who's a sponsor of this video. Aura is the #1 identity theft and financial fraud protection. Aura monitors the dark web and alerts you if any of your passwords and accounts have been breached. And funny enough, after using Aura, I discovered some of my credentials were floating around in the dark web, and the app showed me exactly when and where the breach happened. In addition, Aura allows you to set spending alerts, and they'll notify you of any suspicious transactions. Aura is 4 times faster than any of its competitors in alerting you if someone is trying to open a credit card or obtain a loan using your name. And remember this, every 14 seconds, someone becomes a victim of identity fraud. Don't let it happen to you. Now click the link in the description and try Aura for free for 2 weeks and see if any of you or your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial at aura.com/dreamerspro. And when you try Aura, by using the link in the description below, also know that you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So now, let's go ahead and play this audio for you guys. So take a listen to what Shannon Sharpe had to say here, and then we're going to really come back and unpack this. So take a listen to that.
He goes to Brooklyn. They have superstars. They have superstar, however you want to define the term. Kevin Durant's a superstar. Whether or not you believe Kyrie Irving is a superstar, that's a discussion for another topic or another day. And he says, hold on, wait a minute. We understand that you guys are superstars, but what about the team? What about doing in the best interest of the team? What about all of a sudden it's not about your stat? It's not about you getting 30. It's not about you getting 25 shots. It's not about this. What about winning? And it seems to me is that he didn't see that. And it's like, wow. And it seems to me that the Nets turned the keys over to the car to KD and Kyrie, and they didn't use them in a responsible manner to create a winning environment. And this is why Kevin Durant does not like being a leader, because for the longest time, not being a leader has allowed him to escape responsibility of things that transpired. We know he signed off on the James Harden trade. We know he signed off on the Steve Nash becoming the head coach. We know all the moves, the LaMarcus Aldridge, the Blake Griffin, the Patty Mills, all that he signed off on. But somehow it gets shoved to the foot of Kyrie because Kyrie didn't get the vaccine mandate. So everything that happened within that organization that was negative somehow get placed at Kyrie's feet. Same thing that happened in OKC. Everything that happened negative in OKC got placed at Russ' feet. Somehow Kevin Durant, for the longest time, because Kevin Durant got more fanboys in the media than he would like for you to realize. He escapes criticism. This is what we've seen in a team-centric situation where the hierarchy is already established. Kevin Durant's fine. We heard none of this at Golden State because it was already established. But when we go to the Brooklyn Nets, we hear this in Goran Dragic. I don't think he has an axe to grind. I don't think he's a guy that's bitter or he's upset about anything. I think he's speaking from a point of, this is what I saw in my short tenure.
Now, you heard it. And I want to say this. For as much as I love Kobe Bryant or Kawhi Leonard, it doesn't mean that I need to look for every single opportunity to talk about these guys. Right? I love them, but I don't talk about these guys every single time. And usually when I'm talking about Kobe or Kawhi, I'm usually coming to defense of them. Like Kobe Bryant gets disrespected a whole lot. And usually we create videos where we push back on some of the things that people say about Kobe. For example, when Shannon Sharpe said Kobe Bryant never received the same level of criticism and vitriol that LeBron James received, I really pushed back hard on that position that he took. And I really came to the defense of Kobe Bryant. We're not just sitting up here making topics about it. For instance, Shaq said that he doesn't see Kawhi Leonard as a superstar in the NBA. So I pushed back on it. For as much as these guys are my favorite players, we're not just here pumping out Kobe Kawhi videos every single day, because then in that essence, you are truly, a fanboy. Now, here are the two reasons I believe that Shannon Sharpe has it out for Kevin Durant. The first reason is this, and I think is an obvious one. I think the first reason he has it out for KD is because of the comments that Kevin Durant had to make about certain people in the media. If you guys remember, Kevin Durant came out and said that, I think he was asked about whether or not he would want to play with LeBron or the possibility of being a teammate of LeBron James. And KD basically said that there are too many fanboys in the media that cover LeBron, and the environment around him is toxic. I don't think he was saying that LeBron himself is toxic, because I don't think KD thinks that at all. But he was referring to all of the extra stuff that comes with being on the same team with LeBron. That's the first thing. And I think when he talks about the fanboys aspect, Shannon Sharpe is a fanboy of LeBron. There's no two ways to say it. I think people like Shannon Sharpe, maybe the Nick Wrights of the world, would probably feel a certain type of way when Kevin Durant said that. So that's the first reason. And I think the second reason is something that Skip Bayless alluded to yesterday, which was, KD stood in the way of LeBron winning consecutive championships with the Cleveland Cavaliers when he had Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving and these guys. There's some reality to that. The Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors met in the NBA Finals back-to-back years, and Kevin Durant took over the entire show. He was the best player on the floor, and he won back-to-back Finals MVPs. And if you're a LeBron James fan, I can't see you loving KD for that. Like, yeah, I love you, KD, for stopping my man from winning 2 consecutive championships. Now, some people may argue that, listen, another reason that Shannon Sharpe probably goes so hard at KD is because of the way Skip Bayless always tries to make excuses for Kevin Durant, but never does the same thing with LeBron James. And there's an argument to be made for that. But I think one of the reasons that Skip Bayless does that is because I genuinely believe that Skip Bayless is irked or gets irked whenever Shannon Sharpe says that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time, which means that he believes that he's better than Michael Jordan. I believe that when Shannon Sharpe says that, it really ignites Skip Bayless to always nitpick LeBron, because he's like, well, if you think he's the GOAT, then I'm going to nitpick him the way we would nitpick any GOAT in sports. But then again, some people can push back and say Skip Bayless picks and chooses like he doesn't, he's pro Brady and all of these guys, but he doesn't go. So there's so many aspects to that, but so we're gonna leave that where it is. That could just be a possible counter argument. But then during that statement, or during that audio, or during that segment, depending if you saw the segment live or in its entirety, Shannon Sharpe then went on to say that LeBron always takes responsibility when things go wrong. And I was like, what? LeBron almost never takes any responsibility when things go wrong. It's usually somebody else's fault. It's either the coach, it's either the teammate, it's either the weather, it's either his hand, it's always something. So when he said that, it's stuff like that Kevin Durant is talking about. That is a fanboy statement. I'm not going to use the term that Iman Shumpert used when he was on the Bootleg Kev podcast when he called it a what statement? That is exactly what that is. When you say, because there's no objectivity whatsoever in that statement, and you're acting like as if us here that are watching you don't have computers and TV and can go back and look at somebody. Like, come on, cut it out, right? So when you say that, like that's ridiculous, firstly. Secondly, whenever things go wrong, usually LeBron's teammates are the ones that their legacies take a big hit. You don't need to go any further than look at players like Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, who's supposed to be the next Russell Westbrook, Anthony. Like all of these guys, whenever things go wrong, all of the blame usually gets pointed or gets aimed in their direction. So when he came out there and said that, I thought it was ridiculous. And it was probably one of the reasons why KD said that there's so many fanboys in the media. And probably what he was alluding to was that when things go wrong, usually is going to be other guys that get blamed. And the fact of the matter is that is true. And finally, he said something yesterday that we wanted to react to, but I said, let's react to it in this particular show here. So he said yesterday, which I thought was probably one of the most ridiculous things that he said, when he said that Stephen Curry saved Kevin Durant's legacy. Hold up. If you've been watching basketball for more than 5 years and you saw those finals with the Cavs and the Warriors, who in their right mind would say that Stephen Curry saved KD? Were you even watching the finals? How could he have saved KD's legacy when the year prior he lost to LeBron's Cavs when they came down 3-1, right? They lost. Then you bring KD, you add a new variable into that equation, the biggest variable. You win 2 consecutive finals in a row. He wins 2 finals MVPs back to back. And Steph saved KD's legacy when they were the ones that went to go recruit him? Help me understand how that makes sense. So, if Steph saved KD's legacy, then Andre Iguodala saves Steph's legacy. It is that silly. This is what you call fanboy syndrome. It causes you to say things like this. And finally, when he said the thing about Goran Dragic talking about it's all about stats, and he was kind of co-signing that notion. When have y'all ever heard of Kevin Durant being a stat chaser? KD is the opposite of a stat chaser. Kevin Durant is one of the most unselfish, efficient basketball players of all time. I even heard him sit down when he was on the JJ Redick podcast, and he asked him, why don't you score 50 so many times? And he's like, defenses don't even allow me. They make adjustments after like the first 5 minutes of the game or the first quarter of the first half. They don't allow me to just keep scoring, right? And he doesn't force the issue. Kevin Durant is one of the most unselfish basketball players of all time. And he is not a stat chaser whatsoever at all. At all. Stat chasers do not work in that Golden State system that they were running. That's number one. And number two, who was being accused all of last season of being a stat chaser? Was it Kevin Durant? Or was it LeBron? Who was being accused of that? It was clearly LeBron was the one that was being accused of being a stat chaser. But nevertheless, we're gonna sit up here and talk about KD's a stat chaser. I've never seen KD lose in an NBA Finals and walk around with a T-shirt that said, "Check my stats." I've seen LeBron do that after they lost in the Finals in 2011 to the Dallas Mavericks. He was walking around in the summertime with a T-shirt that said, "Checks my stats." That is something a stat chaser says. And this is what I'm talking about. It's absurd. Like, we got to cut it out. And I'm going to push back on it. And to some people, oh, he hating. You hating on King J. You see, me trying to give a different point of view and not twerking it up all over the place, knocking over everybody's drinks on the table, that's me hating. Nah, bruh, I ain't twerking with you. Catch y'all on the next episode. Peace.